So let's have a go at looking at religion and the law and look at their intersections between them. So religion is generally described as a belief system that involves faith in and worship of supernatural power or powers, often expressed through rituals, prayers, and adherence to some type of doctrines or teachings, right? So it typically includes some amount of moral codes, explanations for the origin of existence, guidelines for behavior. That is where the law comes from. The guidelines for behavior, providing individuals with a framework for understanding the world, right? Their place in it and their relationship with others and the divine. So that's where the law comes from, the natural law comes from. So let's have a look at religion and how it affects and intersects with legal principles. All right? So the historical roots. Many legal systems have deep historical connections to religious traditions. For example, the ancient legal codes such as the Code of Hammurabi and the Ten Commandments. The Code of Hammurabi was the first codified legal system in human history, right? Found somewhere within ancient Babylon, right? And then we have the Ten Commandments coming out of the Middle East and many other different religious beliefs and texts, right? Coming out of the Punjabi area for Sikhism, coming out of the Quranic laws, right, within the Middle East as well. We're looking at different types of laws, Mosaic laws, all these different types of laws, right? Coming from religious or historical roots, right? In some societies, religious authorities historically played a central role in creation and enforcement of laws, administering justice based on religious texts and doctrines. All right. So legal pluralism. How does this work? Pluralistic societies speak to the multiplicity of religious traditions that coexist alongside each other with in the different systems, right? So how does these religious traditions coexist alongside secular legal systems, right? This can lead to the complex interactions between religious laws and state laws, particularly in matters of family, marriage, divorce, and inheritance, right? So remember, when you go through all of I do hope that that you guys, right, as law students, did sociology and history, primarily history. We speak about these things, right? We're going to be looking at disenfranchisement and stuff like that as well. Some countries have legal systems that recognize and accommodate religious laws within certain contexts, such as Sharia law in Islamic countries and Jewish laws in Israel, right? But remember, the separation of church and state is an important thing, and this is to leave the legal system secular, right? But let's have a look at this now. The freedom of religion, right? Many legal systems enshrine the principle of freedom of religion, protecting individuals' right to practice the faith and worship according to their beliefs, right? So this principle is often enshrined within international human rights and Commonwealth Caribbean constitutions, right? So it prohibits any type of discrimination on the basis of religion and aims to safeguard individuals' rights to equal treatment and protection under the law. So speaking about the rule of law there, right? So we're looking at those intersections of religion and the law. But we do have, and we have to mention, disenfranchisement, which speaks to the separation of church and state, right? So the concept of separation of church and state is central to many modern legal systems, particularly in secular democracies, right? So basically, we're trying to stop religious institutions from perverting or from creating perverse issues within the governmental or legal constructs and vice versa. We're trying to stop it's trying to stop religious institutions from infiltrating systems of government and law, and we're trying to stop government and the legal system from changing religious institutions, right? So it goes both ways, right? A government cannot make harsh laws against religious groups, right? And a religious group cannot use the government itself to make their own laws. It cannot work either way, right? So separation of church and state does not necessarily mean that a complete exclusion of religious values are there, because religious values are still present within the society and the law reflects the society, right? So rather, we have the establishment of a neutral, impartial stance by the state regarding religious matters, right? So there are religious matters, right, that the state does still take into hand, right? And this is because religion is also a part of society, and as I stated before, the law reflects the society. So we have legal regulation of religion. Legal systems regulate religious practices and institutions in various ways, such as the registration requirements, zoning laws, taxation, prohibition of certain activities deemed harmful or illegal as well, right? Balancing of rights of religious freedom and societal interests, such as public safety, health, and individual rights, can pose challenges for lawmakers and courts, right? So looking at those type of things, how religious beliefs and religious practices may cause legal problems, right? So we're looking at those type of things. We're trying to make sure that they're separated on a neutral basis, right? What are the contemporary issues between religion and the legal system, right? We're looking at complex debates, right? Along related to religion, such as the freedom of expression, hate speech, right? Conscientious objection, religious exemptions from laws, etc., right? Because we cannot argue, there are some persons arguing that because they practice a specific religion, they should be exempt from such and such laws. That is not how the law works, right? That is generally not how it works, right? Some sects, right, would have some amount of texts, right, or speech based on the subjugation or discrimination of another group, right? That cannot happen within the law itself, right? Religious beliefs are free within the society as it's enshrined within the Bill of Rights, right? And they have the freedom of expression. Therefore, the law or the government itself, right, cannot infringe upon those rights of religious individuals. So we're looking at those type of things, the rights of assembly, the freedom of assembly as well, right? They cannot, or they should not, or they ought not to prevent these religious groups from meeting in their congregations, right? So these issues raise questions about the limits of religious freedom and the role of the state in regulating religious beliefs and practices and balancing between individual rights and societal interests, right? So what happens when the religious view of the society goes against societal interests? What happens when the religious practices, right, infringes upon individual rights? These are where the contemporary issues of religion and law comes from, right? Let's have a look at this. Hyde v. Hyde, 1866. Right? The case law for that. What happened in that case? Or the key thing in that case? There's a key piece of obiter dictum that we take from that case, looking at how religion influences the law. Right? A piece of obiter dictum from Lord Penzance. Right? What did it say? What happened in this case? What did this case state out? Go ahead.
So I can't remember exact, but I know one of the main things that this case formulated was the definition of marriage.
Mm-hmm.
Lord Penzance defined marriage, where he said that I conceive of marriage as understood in Christendom to be the voluntary union for a life of a single man and a single woman, to be excluded from all others.
Lovely. Right. So in this case, we have the definition of the Christian concept of marriage. Right. So this is specifically speaking to the religious sect of Christianity, right, in which we look at the fact that marriage is between biological male and biological female at the exclusion of all others. So looking at the way how it excludes same-sex relationships, it excludes polyamory and polygamy and those other relationships, right? Those are not deemed to be marriage, right? As stated out by Hyde v. Hyde, 1866. What happened in Donahue v. Stevenson? Let me check the chat before I move on, though. I don't want anybody to be typing all the stuff. And all right, so the answers are also in the chat. All right, definition of marriage, polygamous marriage, and the court came up with definition of marriage. So there was a polygamous marriage. All right. Okay, lovely. Adultery as well was stated out there because it said a single man and a single woman. So, right, and we still have those acts as well, right? So if you're already married, there are legal issues for if you marry again while before being divorced, right? Donahue, now we're looking at the bottle of ginger beer. All right, bottle of ginger beer was purchased, and there was a snail decomposed in the center of the bottle. All right, so we know those type of things. It caused nervous shock and gastroenteritis. Lovely, right? So what was stated out here now? One of the main things here was the good neighbor principle, right? Duty of care, the neighbor principle. Lovely, right? Wherein one's neighbor at law is deemed to be anyone who is likely to be affected by one's actions, right? Therefore, the neighbor principle, the duty of care was stated out in 1932 via the Donahue v. Stevenson case. Lovely. Mohammed versus Marine and another 1995. What occurred in that case?
Sir, was this case about like some Muslim some
So it was about a Muslim girl, right? A Muslim student. I mean, not, yeah,
She was deprived to wear a hijab or something like that in school.
right. So she went to a regular school in Trinidad and Tobago, right, wearing her hijab, right, and the and it was somehow against the school prescribed uniform. So she was wearing the hijab, right, instead of the prescribed school uniform, and she brought judicial review proceedings to the challenge the decision, right. So they suspended her for doing that, right, for wearing her hijab, which is her religious headdress, right, which was somehow against the principles of the prescribed school uniform in the school, right? So what was the big issue here? It was the relevant regulations under the Education Act had to be constructed rigidly, right? So looking at the Education Act within Trinidad, right, and the school board had taken irrelevant considerations into account. So we're looking at stuff like that. So such as the school's tradition and the students' loyalty to the school and all of these different things has nothing to do, right, with what we're talking about here. So the school took those things into consideration to suspend her, right? Her suspension was reversed and she was sent back to school wearing her hijab because what they did was actually breach the Education Act. Religious freedom is important, right? So she was sent back to school wearing her hijab, right, promoting religious freedom within the law there, right? So we have that there. Okay. So could look at how Caribbean law itself has been affected by religious influences, right? As within the Caribbean society, we have a pluralist society within the Caribbean due to the immigration, right, of persons from the Indian subcontinent, right, from Eastern Asia, right, and from the Middle East to the Caribbean itself that carried their different religious views. We could look at the different types of laws and acts that were placed, right, as an effect of religion on the law itself within the Caribbean. All right, so you could speak about these different laws. All right, so lovely. That is it with the intersection of law and morality, right? Law, morality, and religion, rather. Okay.